of the
you won't hear it from me first.
Okay, all right.
But let's say this. Honestly, I'm still struggling with where to begin. I'm still struggling from where to begin because it's a sad story. And understandably, those who plan in Nigeria, government plans, come up with policies, initiate these policies, and execute these policies, they are exempt from the problem in the society. I don't know of any other country. Some people might enlighten me, but I said I don't know of any other country that runs a system that insulates its leaders from the problem of the society. I don't know of any other country. So we're running a system where it doesn't matter how poor you are. You can be a keke driver and then win an election. I used a keke because if that's what you do, then you're in touch with the grassroots. Because you actually ply at the grassroots. You live there, you operate there, you function there, right? If you win election into the House of Assembly or the House of Representatives, you can't win it. You can't go to the Senate straight from there, except what also happened the last time. Okay, whatever. You become a governor, whatever, right? The moment you are sworn in, we run a system that insulates you from that, right? And so your health care needs is no longer from the country. Education for you and your children no longer in the country. Your shopping needs no longer in the country, and everything no longer in the country. You don't talk naira anymore; it's dollars. So you have, first of all, as human beings, we were created to solve the problems in our environment. That's how we were wired. So whether consciously or unconsciously, you want to solve the problems around you, right? Now, when you insulate a man from something, man and woman, then it's not in our brains. Our brains are not designed to solve the problems that doesn't exist. Our brain was wired by the Creator to solve a problem that exists. So when I don't use the hospitals I don't use, my thinking, what does the Bible say? How does the Bible put it? It say, is it our heart is where our riches are?
Where your heart is.
Are you as bad as I am when you talk to but we understand what that means. That simply means that wherever your wealth is, that is where your thoughts are.
Yeah.
Right. So if you are somebody who diamonds and golds and naira, if that is what you spend your time thinking about, then that's your God, right? So these guys don't feel what we feel in the hospitals. They don't feel what and so now we're talking about unemployment, right? So just linking it to the palliatives we talked about. So we are running a system where you elect somebody and then he's getting 100 million naira palliative. So because he's getting 100 million naira palliative, he's exempt from, he doesn't understand the inflation rate and how Gary has moved from 1,000 naira to 2,500.
There was a time they were selling it 250. From there.
No, I'm just saying the last one. He doesn't understand it, and so he can't address that problem. So that is really why our problem is the way it is, and we have this high number of unemployment, because those who are supposed to solve the problem, those who are supposed to come up with ideas on how to solve the problem, those who are supposed to implement policies on the problem, they don't feel pain, right? Now, as it has to do with education, we missed the point with our failure to understand that education actually, at the end of the day, however one defines education which has been, every finding on the planet about education affirms that education and national development is tied together. So the more educated the people are, the more developed their country is. But then if you strip education naked, what education really is a mastery of your environment. That you master your environment, you can solve the problems of your environment. That is what education does. And so, when we look at how Western education, because now when we're talking about education in Nigeria, sadly, we're talking about Western education. If you look at how Western education came to us, if you look at the curriculum we run, we are operating a curriculum that came to us at a different time in the development of this world, when it was all about industries. And so, our curriculum was designed to prepare the Nigerian child to work in factories and industries. The kind of factories and industries that existed at that time. And so at the time the curriculum came to us, there is another conversation that says it was flawed. But let us just agree that at least that was what was needed to mass lift families out of poverty. And so the result is there. At that time, when our parents would tell us that, hey, before we finish school, there was a job waiting for us. Right? So there were more factories than there were qualified workforce to work in these factories. There were more industries than there were qualified workforce to work for these industries. There was more ministries, agencies, and departments of government than there were educated workforce to supply these people. And so we actually had a time when they get you in and offer you scholarship. So bright kids in schools, there were different kind of scholarship schemes that were there to scout for bright people. Yeah. So then they trained you to their taste. Scholarship outside of the country, and that was every institution, including the military. Every. So when you look at the officers of then, who most generals, retired generals now, you see the foreign military academies they all went to, Sandhurst and Co. Now these are the best in the world. So we had more opponents than we had workforce. We continue in our usual style. We never took time to evaluate. A curriculum needs constant evaluation. So, and that is why you have, whether you call it Ministry of Education at the federal or at the state, that is so. This is the function of it. This is duty. You're supposed to look at, okay, what are we producing? What are we producing? Are they meeting up? Why are they not meeting up? Is it them? Is it us? Is it a combination of them and us? How do we change this narrative? They're supposed to constantly review this. They're supposed to look at the needs of the country. Do we need more doctors, for instance? Do we need more engineers? Do we need more technicians? Do we need more? Who do we need more? And with the result of that, then you go back and say, okay, how do we encourage our children? How do we channel? This should be an everyday thing. That is why somebody is drawing salary. So constantly doing that. That has not been happening. Right. And so what we now have on our hands is we create the problem. We pass this problem, to our children. And then somehow we turn around at the end and then say, the problem are our children. And so, whether it's some employers saying that nasty thing about Nigerian graduates being unemployable and justifying so many things happening, say, well, they're not employable. At the end of the day, we hold these examinations and Nigerian youth, and just about 1% can pass. And it justifies why they have to go abroad and get expatriates. So work jobs Nigerian children should have had. Why are they citing their companies outside, or their industry, the factories outside of this country? And there's the justification that you can't find a qualified workforce in Nigeria because our Nigerian youth. And then they say they are not serious, they are this, they are this, they are this. And nobody is saying, the problem is we have not invested in our education. We have not streamlined our education to prepare these children for the realities they are going to face. And so we are running a system where children are now going to school earlier than we did. I'm talking about my generation. These children are going to school earlier than we did. These children are coming back from school later than we did.
Later, yeah.
I went to school maybe 7:30, maybe, I can't remember, but thereabout. I still remember this. And I remember this with nostalgia. The sun will always be out when we're going to school. Like, you know, the early morning sun. But these children are going to school. Do you see when these children are going to school? Very early. I still remember that 12 noon, come back. I still remember that. I still remember that lesson, you know, extra lesson at 1 p.m. And I still remember how stressful it used to be. I still remember that lessons when I was in primary school was reserved for just people who were preparing to sit for their exams, and that was primary 6. I still remember how we used to look at them when we were passing through, you know, school had closed, blah, 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 and we were rushing to leave. I still remember how we used to look at them, you know. They had this, the most serious students in the world look, you know, because they were in primary 6 and they were preparing for exams and we were rushing home. I remember when my elder brother was in primary 6. I remember, you know, you're afraid to come to their class because these are serious people. So we are rushing home to eat. At that time, right? Now these children are closing by 4, right?
Something that they will leave around 7, 6:30.
Now, we have taken away all the time that should have been invested. And this is exactly what people who do not think do. And we are not a thinking nation. So we see at the end of the day, we see what's happening with our graduates. That we are saying our graduates are not employable. We are saying our graduates do not have skills, the requisite skills. And it's a sin what we are doing. That when we talk about sin, when we talk about skills in 2023, we're still talking about carpentry. And teaching them how to make perfume. I'm teaching them how to sew. It's a sin what we are doing. Right? Because the high paying jobs, the kind of skill globally that, you know, the high paying jobs, STEM jobs, we are not thinking of that. We are still thinking of some 1960 kind of skills. On radio today, you see hear people remembering with nostalgia and still advocating for it to be taught to our children how to weave a kete. Right? How to weave a kete. You know a kete?
Yes.
They still want, they think that teaching their children in 2023 how to weave a kete. Oh, you see, that is the kind of skills they want.
Well, look at it this way. If they don't learn it, who will not do it?
No. Let me land, and then you tell us how to weave the ekete for our children, right? Now, the thing is this: we are looking at the end, and we don't like what is at the end. But then we're not trying to address this. Say, what should a Nigerian child be doing in primary school for all of this time, when at the end of the day it has been proven to us that this is not functional? We're not trying to address that. So we take all of the time, and then by the time he gets to primary 6, they've already, this is how God wired man. The human being, right? How God wired us is, at that stage, you're leaving primary school. At that stage, around 10 or so, your system is accustomed to what learning is.
Yeah.
And so to them, what learning is sitting down to read and learn. And then we send them off to secondary school. When we send them off to secondary school, many of them will attend boarding schools. And it's still the same regimen. Read. Outdated curriculum, outdated books, outdated system. We do not want to pay teachers well. all of us, when I say all of us who run secondary schools, we do not want to pay teachers well. And so we do not get people who are, who can impart who have the kind of knowledge that is required for children who will operate in a world of 10 years from now. Because that's what you do. If you are training a child in GS1, you should start training the child for the world that will exist in 12 years' time. Because they're going to finish 6 years and then they'll get into the university, right? So you shouldn't be teaching the child to learn and master the problems of today. You think towards the future. Now we are getting those who competed and lost in today's society to teach them, because we are still looking for how, and that is on that sin we are committing. And we tell ourselves we are doing well with education, because when these teachers finish teaching them, what they're just doing is just recycling. So you learn physics, you learn this, and then these children come out, and then we throw them into the higher institution, and then by some miracle, when they graduate, we now want to start channeling them. You should go and learn tailoring. You should go and learn this thing. You should go and learn mama. You said you learned painting.
How to produce paint.
Okay, I won't ask you. I won't ask you how many gallons of paint
I was able to produce.
Till date. But then the truth still remains that we need to make our education functional. We need to look at the Nigerian society. We need to look at the problems we want these children to face, to solve. We need to look at how we want these children to operate, and then we begin from primary school and infuse all of these things, right? Nobody says you should go to school in 2023 and learn how to label an insect. There's this viral clip.
Yeah, that's what we do on biology. We had to even do it on our Y practical, where they would draw and
you saw that clip?
Ask you no, I didn't see the clips, but
this is what he did. I'll just summarize what he said.
Okay.
And it's disturbing, and I want it to disturb all of us, because we need to solve this problem. He said that in Africa, when you say this child is getting 70%, 80%, he said it's 70 and 80% of nothing. Now what are we teaching our kids? They were teaching them to label an insect. He said, but there is a child in Germany being taught mining. That is, it's primary. It's being taught mining.
Yeah.
And he asked a question. What is child going to mine? The child is being trained in Germany to come down to Africa and exploit us, right? But then our children are taught how to label insects. So our children at best our children are being taught to serve them at best, because somebody who learned how to label an insect can't even help somebody who came down to mine in his community. So he said, so why can't we learn it? So agriculture is one of our biggest things. So why don't we start teaching our children in primary school? Why don't we start teaching them about the value chain in agriculture? Because you go to the I went to, there's this mall close to my house.
Yeah.
We're talking, I told my child, I said, look, everything you see here, 70% of it, 80% of it comes from farming. I just want to start making him think. Comes from farming. And so I taught this, and I'll tell him how it either came from plants, something that was planted, or an animal. So whether it's a cream, whether it's animal, whether it's this, whether it's chocolate, So you start thinking. So when you think of farming, we still teaching our children, and that's what we do. In the best, we say, we have practicals. So we're teaching our children to use hoes and cutlass. In 2023, the best of our schools, when they say telling parents to bring hoes and cutlass, who uses hoes and cutlass?
Yeah.
Is that what Israel uses today? Is what the UK uses today? Is that what all of the countries we import food from? Is that what Ukraine uses? All of the countries we import grains from, are they using hoes and cutlass? So, but then here we are, expensive education, yet so unfunctional. We are teaching them to use hoes and cutlass. We are teaching them that agriculture is when you see something green. We're not teaching them that the cream in agriculture. So we're not teaching them the whole value chain in agriculture. So this is where I have a problem. I think our problem, what I fear is, we are not addressing the fundamental problems. We are just addressing the superficial. We're just addressing the superficial, and there is nowhere. Maybe you might teach me today, but I've not seen anywhere where the superficial solve the fundamental. But every example in history tells us that if you solve the fundamental, then every other thing will fall in place. So